Under the auspices of the Ministry of Health, an agreement has been signed with the French University of Nice to hold clinical training courses.
The courses will be held by a specialized medical team from the French University of Nice for Kuwaiti doctors. More details with Adra Jabr.
Under the auspices of the Ministry of Health, an agreement was reached between Kuwait Institute of Medical Specialties and the University of Nice in France to hold clinical and professional courses by a specialized medical team of Kuwaiti doctors.
So I'm very delighted this morning because in the presence of Chair Dr. Bassel, the Ministry of Health, and in the presence of the CEO of Nice Hospital and as well as the Secretary General of the Kuwait Institute for Medical Specialization, we actually signed an agreement and memorandum of understanding to provide for fellowships for medical doctors of Kuwait in France at the Nice Hospital. And the Nice Hospital is one of the leading medical institutions in France, so it's a great subject of pride for me to announce this new cooperation between the two countries in training the medical doctors in very important sub-specializations, such as, for instance, cardiovascular, in which France has really a great expertise. So this is the result of 2 years of discussions between the KIMS and Nice Hospital, and we hope this is just the beginning of a very fruitful cooperation. So far we will start by training 10 medical doctors every year for the next 5 years, and we hope, we'll get very soon the first medical doctors to come to France. We hope that as soon as September or October, these fellowships will start.
As the qualified and the trained team of specialized foreign medical staff represents the main pillar of the modern system capable of facing challenges and keeping up with developments. And this is what the keen on Kuwait Institute of Medical Specialized. This was Adra Jabr reporting to Kuwait English News.
Kuwait's efforts to aid those in need are seen all over the globe with its continuous shipments of food and medical supplies.
Medical help in Gaza, wells in Yemen and shelters in Myanmar are some of the many contributions of Kuwait towards the betterment of the lives of those affected by war and various disasters. More with Hawra Al-Awadi.
The state of Kuwait continues its efforts to help needy countries and individuals. That said, 9 new shipments of food and medical supplies from Kuwait has arrived in the Gaza Strip, with hopes of helping those affected by the Israeli occupation forces. And further detail, 3 of those shipments are full of food baskets and supplies, while 4 are designated for medical supplies and the last 2 carry sheets and covers. Kuwait has also pledged to help the people in Gaza rebuild their broken homes. Shifting to Yemen, as part of the Kuwait is by Your Side campaign, Kuwait established a water supply that covers the needs of 3,000 families in 6 residential areas. Moreover, Kuwait is preparing for a variety of projects, including wells and other sustainable projects that are aimed to make life easier for Yemeni people. On the Red Crescent Society front, the KRCS has built 1,200 shelters in Myanmar that are aimed to better the lifestyle of people via the distribution of 1,200 food baskets and the building of 2 mosques.
The Saudi-led coalition to support the legitimate Yemeni government said today that it destroyed 2 booby-trap boats launched by the Houthi militia. The coalition also intercepted an explosives-laden drone fired by the Yemeni Houthi militia towards civilian targets in the Saudi city of Khamis Mshait. In a statement aired by the Saudi press agency SPA, the coalition said that the Houthi militia is continuing to threaten shipping lines and global trade in the southern Red Sea. The coalition vowed to take all necessary measures to defend civilian and counter the Houthi threat.
The Yemeni government has affirmed a commitment to the implementation of the Riyadh Agreement, welcoming all of its provisions, which call for the escalation of violence on all levels.
The latest developments come a day after representatives of the Yemeni government and the Southern Transitional Council met in Riyadh, seeking to solidify efforts of implementing the Riyadh Agreement. More details in the following report.
Yemen's government and major political parties have welcomed the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia's call for the signatories to the landmark Riyadh Agreement to stick to their peace plan pledges. The sides highlighted the need for the return of cabinet ministers to the southwestern coastal city of Aden in a bid to help restore security, revive state bodies, and address basic state services. Yemen's foreign ministry welcomed the statement issued by Saudi Arabia, which calls for adherence to the agreed commitments to halting the escalation of violence and preparing for the speedy return of the Yemeni government to Aden. Saudi Arabia has called on both sides to set aside differences and stick to common interests to continue implementing the terms of the agreement in order to unify the Yemeni people and stop years of bloodshed. On Friday, representatives from the Yemeni government and the Southern Transitional Council held talks in the Saudi capital Riyadh, aimed at speeding up the implementation of the Riyadh Agreement and ending all forms of violence in Yemen. Signed by the Yemeni government and the Southern Transitional Council in late 2019, the Riyadh Agreement diffused hostility.
The judge in charge of the investigation into the Beirut port blast will seek to question top politicians and security officials almost a year after the explosion that devastated the capital. The blast was blamed on a huge quantity of chemicals left for years in poor storage conditions, and it deepened a political and economic crisis in the heavily indebted country. The lead investigator into the blast, Judge Tariq Bitar, will call in caretaker Prime Minister Hassan Diab and other top officials, although no dates have been set.
UN-sponsored Libya talks focused on opening doors for elections failed to find common ground.
The talks were described as heated debate by UN officials as they called on participants to pursue the effort. More in the following report with Farah Shammari.
According to the Deputy of the United Nations mission in Libya, UN-sponsored talks aimed at paving the way for elections in Libya in late December have failed to find common ground. Raising Dinzininga, Assistant Secretary General and Mission Coordinator of the UN Support Mission in Libya, called on participants to pursue the effort, describing the talks as heated debate. He also said that the people of Libya will certainly feel let down as they still aspire to the opportunity where they exercise their democratic rights in presidential and parliamentary elections on 24th of December, and that it does not bode well for the credibility and future relevance of the LPDF. Moreover, delegates had been expected to establish the constitutional basis for presidential and parliamentary elections by July 1st. However, delegates and UN officials said they could not agree among themselves on several proposals circulating, prompting organizers to extend the talks originally planned to last 4 days. The proposals, including holding both presidential and legislative elections next December, or just holding legislative elections at the set date and postponing the presidential poll to a later date. All in all, the elections would be a critical step in international efforts to bring stability to Libya, which has been experiencing several years of unrest. This is Farah Shammari for KTV2.
Kabul residents expressed concern today after US forces handed over the main Bagram air base and pulled troops, saying they feared the security situation in the country would worsen. The handover of the base to the Afghan government was part of an agreement with the Taliban allowing for the withdrawal of all US forces from the country after a 2-decade war. The US military coordinated its air war and logistical support for its Afghan mission from the base, about 60 kilometers north of Kabul. The withdrawal of the forces symbolizes the end of the US military involvement in the country. Violence has risen sharply towards the country as foreign forces work towards withdrawing by September 11, and peace talks in Qatar failed to make significant progress. The Taliban launched a wave of offensives around the country, particularly in the north, outside their southern strongholds.
Top UN officials warned the Security Council that more than 400,000 people in Ethiopia's Tigray were now in famine, and that there was a risk of more clashes in the region despite a unilateral ceasefire by the federal government. After 6 private discussions, the Security Council held its first public meeting since fighting broke out in November between government forces backed by troops from neighboring Eritrea and TPLF fighters with Tigray's former ruling party. Acting UNA Chief Ramesh Raja Sigams told the Council that the humanitarian situation in Tigray had worsened dramatically in recent weeks, with an increase of some 50,000 in the number of people now suffering famine.
German Chancellor Angela Merkel said she was optimistic that the 3-month extension to the grace period for shipments of certain products from Britain to Northern Ireland would give enough time for a durable solution to be found. During a press conference with British Prime Minister Boris Johnson, Chancellor Merkel said that the immediate priority is to find a solution to the row over the status of Northern Ireland with respect to the EU single market and Ireland. Regarding COVID-19 travel regulations, Chancellor Merkel announced that Britons who have had both doses of COVID-19 vaccine should soon be able to travel to Germany without going into quarantine on arrival.
The death toll from last week's building collapse in Florida rose to 22 after search and rescue crews found 2 more bodies. The search for victims in the rubble resumed today after it was suspended for much of Thursday over worries that a remaining section of the 12-story tower could collapse. 126 people were listed as missing and feared buried beneath tons of concrete as the search entered its 9th day.
The World Health Organization's COVID-19 dashboard showed that globally there were over 183 million confirmed cases of COVID-19 and the death toll is near 4 million.
The World Health Organization Director General said that the Delta variant, which is first detected in India, is dangerous and continues to mutate, requiring continuous evaluation and adjustment of public health measures. More news with Reem Limnais.
According to the World Health Organization, the total number of global COVID-19 cases surpassed 183 million and the death toll exceeded 3.9 million. The United States remains the most hit country in the world in the numbers of both confirmed COVID-19 cases and death. The total number of confirmed COVID-19 cases in the United States had surpassed 34.5 million, with the death toll exceeding 621,000. India is the second hit country in the world with over 30 million COVID-19 cases and the death toll is over 401,000, while Brazil reported over 18 million cases and over 522,000 deaths. Meanwhile, the World Health Organization said that the highly contagious Delta variant that first detected in India had been reported in over 98 countries and regions. They added that the Delta variant is becoming the dominant variant in many countries, and the world is at a very dangerous stage of the COVID-19 pandemic.
That was the main news for today. Up next, Najlat Sadiq brings us the latest in business. Stay tuned.
Local oil prices continue rising while global oil prices experience ups and downs. Wall Street indexes hit new record highs as recent jobs data shows continuous hiring rate in June. Good evening and welcome to Economy News. The price of Kuwait oil continues to increase, gaining 31 cents to stand at $75.47 per barrel, as opposed to yesterday's value, $75.16 a barrel. Furthermore, global prices witness a mixture of results, with the Brent crude gaining 33 cents to stand at $76.17 a barrel, whereas the West Texas Intermediate went down 7 cents, having it settle at $75.30 per barrel. Wall Street recorded new highs, with the S&P closing up for a 7th straight day after jobs data for June displayed robust hiring. Yet persistent weakness in the labor market will keep the Federal Reserve from raising interest rates anytime soon. That said, all three main indexes hit new records, with the Dow Jones Industrial Average rising by 0.44% to about 34,786 points. Both the S&P 500 and the Nasdaq Composite also increased, having gained 0.75% and 0.81% respectively, to stand at around 4,352 and 14,639 points. Elsewhere, in order to stabilize the price of the commodity, which is used in everything from food products to cosmetics, China has started to trade in palm oil futures, making it a major importer of palm oil, using 15% of the world total. Palm oil is considered a key component of most soaps, but manufacturers were forced to reduce the amount of it in their products due to the rising price of the raw material. That said, Shanghai Soap now uses around 15,000 tons of palm oil in its production lines yearly, accounting for about 30 to 40% of its raw materials. The company has now been working to develop new products with new technologies, new ingredients, and new functions to recapture its profits with the increase of their product prices. As such, some of the company's new products will be going for as much as 150 yuan. And finally, according to the Customs Office, the offshore duty-free sales in Hainan under customs supervision reached 46.8 billion yuan, a yearly increase of 226%. Furthermore, the average daily shopping volume was 128 million yuan, considered 227% higher on a yearly basis, while an average of 19,000 shoppers was recorded daily. More with Hawra Al-Awadi.
Offshore duty-free sales in China's southernmost island province of Hainan hit 46.8 billion yuan, considered about $7.3 billion by the end of June, recording a surge of 226% from that of a year earlier. In further detail, last July, the island province increased its annual tax-free shopping quota from 30,000 yuan to 100,000 yuan per person, with the range of duty-free goods expanding from 38 categories to 45. Moreover, the previous tax-free limit of 8,000 yuan for a single product was also lifted, which resulted in the increase of duty-free shoppers having their numbers increased by 102% on a yearly basis to 6.82 million by the end of June. In terms of purchases, 60.72 million items were collectively purchased, having the percentage go up by 211% from a year earlier. According to the customs, the top three products in terms of sales volume are cosmetics, watches, and jewelry. Combined together, they account for 71.5% of the province's total offshore duty-free sales.
That's the end of Economy News for this evening. Stay tuned with Umran Al-Dalal for the sports news.
Italy reached the semi-finals of Euro 2020 after beating Belgium 2-1. And Brazil to play Peru in the semi-finals of Copa America after overcoming Chile. Good evening and welcome to Sports News. Italy continued their impressive form at Euro 2020 as they eliminated the top-ranked nation in the world, Belgium. The Azzurri will now face Spain in the semi-finals after Spaniards overcame a tough Switzerland side on penalties. Mohamed Al-Anezi has the details.
Two fantastic goals from Nicola Barella and Lorenzo Insigne were enough to lead Italy to a 2-1 win over Belgium and set up a semi-final showdown with Spain at Wembley. Italy, who have not won the Euro since 1968, have not lost a game in almost 3 years. They are unbeaten in 32 matches and have now won 13 in a row, only conceding twice in that time. Belgium coach Roberto Martinez praised his players' efforts, but said his side did not really create chances until the second half, when small margins decided a breathless encounter. Italy's former Manchester City boss Roberto Mancini hailed his players and said the team fully deserved their victory. The only low point of Italy's night was the injury to left-back Spinazzola. The 28-year-old Roma defender has been one of the best players in the tournament so far, but he pulled up chasing the ball and left on a stretcher and is expected to be out for a few months. Italy's defensive resolve was impressive, and they looked like a free-flowing team, even though they had to grind out the win in Munich. With a 100% record, Italy head into their semi-final with Spain, confident of reaching a second final in the last 3 editions of the tournament, having lost 4-0 to their next opponents in the 2012 showpiece match.
In other news, England will attempt to qualify for their first European Championship semi-final for 25 years when they face Ukraine later tonight. If England win, Gareth Southgate's side will face either the Czech Republic or Denmark, who are currently facing each other in the other quarter-final match of the day. After playing their first 4 games at Wembley, tonight's match in Italy's capital is England's first away match of Euro 2020. Should England win, they would reach the semi-finals of the European Championship for the first time since Euro 96. In another major topic, Brazil survived losing Gabriel Jesus to a red card early in the second half to defeat Chile 1-0 in a thrilling Copa America tie and move into the semi-finals. Going into the match, Brazil were unbeaten in 11 games and topped Group B, while Chile finished only 4th in Group A and have drawn 4 of their last 6 matches. The host nation will play Peru, who beat Paraguay on penalties earlier in the day at Rio de Janeiro's Nilton Santos Stadium on July 5th. The other quarterfinals will feature Argentina against Ecuador, and Uruguay will face Colombia. And in our final story, Novak Djokovic roared into the 4th round at Wimbledon after dispatching American qualifier Denis Kodla in 3 sets. Djokovic found it difficult against the American, but he dug deep for the victory and continued onwards in his quest for a 6th Wimbledon title. Meanwhile, the home favorite and 2-time champion Andy Murray crashed out of the tournament at the hands of Canada's Denis Shapovalov in the 3rd round. Shapovalov showed no mercy with a strong display to put himself in the Wimbledon last 16 for the first time and deny Murray a 12th visit to the 4th round at the All England Club. That was it for sports news. Up next is the weather forecast with Fatma Gallaf.
Thank you, Imran, and welcome to the weather forecast. Ladies and gentlemen, these upcoming days are expected to be the hottest of the year, so please invest in an umbrella and take care while driving outdoors, especially this week, because we will have rising dust and the visibility will be decreased, especially over open areas. Right now, temperature is 44 degrees Celsius here at Kuwait City with a humidity of 9%. We have southerly wind with 4 km/h speed. Taking a look at the satellite image, we can see clear skies over the state of Kuwait, and for tomorrow early morning hours, the minimum expected temperature will be around 31 degrees in Kuwait City, and the maximum will be around 51 degrees Celsius for tomorrow afternoon. Very hot weather and high waves with 2 to 6 feet, and the weather is not suitable for any sea activities. Moving on to Fajr prayer time for tomorrow will be at 3:23, sunrise at 4:56 and sunset at 6:50. And the weather expected for the next 5 days recap: sunny weather, hot temperatures of 50 degrees Celsius. Please take care while being outdoors in the sun, and 31 for minimum expected in the early morning hours. Northwesterly wind and chances for rising dust. Thank you for everything, and we'll get back to the main anchors after temperatures of different cities around the world. Before we end, here's a quick reminder of tonight's headlines. The state of Kuwait continues its global humanitarian campaign with the provision of aid to the world's neediest countries. The Arab-led coalition intercepts a pair of bomb-laden Houthi boats off Yemen's Hodeidah port. US forces depart the main airbase in Afghanistan amid heightened concern in the capital, Kabul. And finally, the number of global confirmed COVID-19 cases approaches 184 million as deaths near 4 million. That brings us to the end of this update. Thank you for watching and have a good evening.
Thank you.